times already. And apparently it won't shut up, so I'll have to deal with it. Rebecca's case was one of many, but in 2017 there was a new discovery or something that it was shared in the media that wasn't shared before. And it kind of tells us a little bit more of what could have happened and maybe we haven't considered in the beginning. Okay? So, for those of you who do not know who Rebecca Coriam is, I'm going to give you a little introduction before we talk about what happened to her. Rebecca was born on March 11th, 1987 in Chester, England. I recently was looking to this map. We're reading Robinson Crusoe, and we were going through the different parts of England, and you know where Robinson was from, which is York. So it's a really nice place. Chester in particular, again, kind of been looking into different places, and this is a quite beautiful place. She lived there with her parents, her sister Rachel, and two foster brothers. The family was described as very social, outgoing, involved in their community, willing to lend a hand, and very popular among the other people in Chester. Rebecca graduated from Chester Catholic High School and worked at the Chester Zoo for a while. The Chester Zoo was a very familiar place to her family because they all worked in some way or another there, and they even have a memorial bench in her grandparents' name. So it was kind of expected to her to follow through and kind of continue that tradition, especially knowing that she enjoyed that job. Later on, she joined the British Army cadets in her while she was still in her teenage years, and later on went to Plymouth University and studied sports science. She took additional studies at Liverpool Hope University and spent 4 months and she was on the phone. Now, keep in mind, this is an internal ship phone, and she was talking to somebody that was in the ship, so it wasn't outside. According to people that knew her, she looked distraught, and this guy walks by her, and in the camera, you can see the footage. You can see that this guy walks by and asks, "Is everything alright?" She said, "Yeah, fine." Not that we can hear what she's saying, but you can read her lips. Apparently, she hangs up the phone and she walks away, pushing her hair back and putting her hands in her back pockets. The way that she left and the way that she behaved during that conversation that you could see in the camera, it was described as normal to her parents. I mean, the parents would say that that's something completely normal, her mannerism, but a lot of people question why she was so upset. At that point, the ship or the cruise was between Cabo San Lucas, and so it was in international waters. So the U.S. Coast Guard and the Mexican Navy searched the international waters immediately after realizing that they couldn't find Rebecca. Now, there is a sketchy, because I don't know how else to describe it, but there's a sketchy witness that said that Rebecca went overboard at 3 a.m. So, U.S. Coast Guard and the Mexican Navy checked extra carefully the area where the cruise was at 3 a.m. This doesn't make a lot of sense because we have footage at 5:45 that she was on the phone. And if he did see her going overboard, why didn't he report that? It's not like, well, if they notice, I'm gonna go and say, yeah, she went overboard. I don't understand why this guy is even here, but I guess I thought about leaving this out, but it is something that is very well known in this case, and I thought that I should add it and let you think whatever you think about it. Now, the ship was registered in the Bahamas, and so they had to send somebody from the Bahamas to investigate what happened to Rebecca. A lot of people wonder why, if this is international waters, we're in Mexico, she's the ship is American, she's employed by an American company, but then the ship is registered in the Bahamas, so my goodness, it was a big mess because it's responsibility of everyone, but no one in particular. So I don't know if I would ever disappear, if I would want more than one law thing involved. You know what I mean? If somebody disappears, if it's a kidnapping, they would contact the FBI. So the local authorities will work with the FBI because it's a federal matter, but it's also a local thing. So I get it. But how? I mean, it's the kind of thing they're like, well, I'm sure the detective from the Bahamas just check on that. Well, maybe the Navy did check this little area right here, U.S. Coast Guard. You know what I mean? It's a big mess, and there's too many authorities involved, but no one has any idea of what could have happened. Now, at this point, they had to return to LA. 3 days later, they were in LA after she was reported missing, of course. Rebecca's parents were informed right away. You know, they didn't wait, which was nice on Disney part to let them know immediately that Rebecca was missing. So by the time that the ship made it back to LA, the parents were there. They were flown from England by Disney, and it was kind of a secret operation because they were put in a blacked out, in a car that had blacked out windows, and they would enter the ship through the area where the people exit, and it was kind of, I don't know, like almost like Disney, where they were hiding the parents, which in my opinion makes sense because the parents have no idea what happened. This is a big circus and the media and everything, so it made sense to me. But the parents were kind of upset of that. When they got in the ship, the captain told them that he was sent to inform them that Rebecca had been washed overboard by a rogue wave while she was at the crew pool. The interesting part is that when the parents went to this area, you could see that there are high walls over 6 feet, and it didn't make sense that much to them, the idea that she could have been washed overboard. Later on, some experts would say that there is a possibility that a big wave can get into that area, but she would slip and fall and, go into different directions, but it would have caused some kind of damage to the ship, and there was none. So the parents didn't need the expert to tell them that. It kind of made sense to them that that wasn't possible, and they were very suspicious with all this that they were being told. Now, after that, the parents were taken to a meeting with Disney's executives, and apparently there was the last person that spoke to Rebecca before she disappeared, which was a woman. They had that little meeting that I have no idea what they talked about. I am assuming that Disney is trying to do some kind of damage control. Again, not a fact. I'm assuming myself. That's my opinion. But later on, they met with a detective that came from the Bahamas, and he said that he spent a day interviewing some key crew members, but he got nothing. And he also said that he didn't interview any of the passengers. That would have caused panic and people being afraid, and in my opinion, kind of bad publicity. So I can't even begin to imagine how the parents felt about this person that it's supposed to be the responsible one in this investigation, telling them that he chose not to interview the passengers, and he only interviewed a few of the crew members that he thought would be relevant. Wow. So, you're telling the parents that you don't know where her daughter she went. What happened to her? And you're also telling them that you don't care to know. Basically, I mean, I would feel that way. When the parents went to Rebecca's room, they found park tickets that Rebecca was planning to give her parents and sister, along with a trip when she got back home. I mean, if she was depressed or if they had any indications that she could have taken her own life, this would indicate the opposite. More likely that she was looking forward to go back home. So, the idea of a suicide didn't make sense. There was another theory that she slipped and fell while on deck 4. The railing is not long, so it's kind of short. And that is the area where she used to run because she was a fit person. But if she fell or something happened, there are security cameras that would have caught it. But it didn't. So, now, the idea of being swept from the swimming pool area, maybe she committed suicide, maybe she was running. This is kind of going all over the place, but it gets worse. When there was an investigation a year later after her disappearance, because up until this point, we know that Disney said, well, she went overboard. So a year passed by and somebody from, I think it was The Guardian, decided to go and take one of these cruises. And try to find out how everything works. This was with the permission of the family to investigate a little bit more. And he did talk to people who wouldn't give their names and wanted to protect their identities, but that people said a lot. Now, one of them said that, yeah, in fact, Rebecca did went overboard in the cruise swimming pool area that everyone knows. She even mentions a flip-flop that the police even gave to the parents, saying that it was Rebecca's and it wasn't, and I'll go into that in a minute. This person even said that the next day flowers were placed on that wall, but Disney quickly removed them. Now, if that was true, today there are cameras in that area. And it's probably all there. If in fact the cameras were in that area at the time that conversation with another friend that was in the ship. On the anniversary, after a year, the parents gave an interview where they mentioned a love triangle while on the ship between a young woman, American woman, an older man, and Rebecca. The three of them were crew members. Now, this is something that in 2017 was revealed in more detail, okay? Which is something that makes a little bit more sense in my head. Maybe it doesn't to you, but in my head it does make a little bit more sense. When we look at the footage, we see that Rebecca is using big, baggy men's clothing. Some of the reports say that Rebecca was wearing men's pajamas, and almost like she spent the night somewhere with somebody and didn't bring clothes, so she borrowed some from whoever she spent the night with. That makes sense, right? Because the clothes that she was wearing that night wasn't hers, and that is confirmed by the parents and confirmed by the crew members that knew how she dressed. Another interesting thing is that Disney gave the flip-flops to the parents with Rebecca's belongings, but the flip-flops were not Rebecca's style. They were Hawaiian and very girly girl, and it had another name in the flip-flops and another cabin number. So definitely not Rebecca's. But it's possible that Rebecca was using them because, again, she was probably at somebody else's room that night. And it's possible that she was wearing them, and it's possible that they found some kind of evidence, DNA or something that indicated to Disney or the authorities that probably were Rebecca's, even though they never released the name or cabin number of the person that actually owned the flip-flops. So Rebecca disappeared around 5:45 a.m. And 6, I think that's when they have it. But she was between Puerto Vallarta and Cabo San Lucas. Now in 2017, again, some notes from the superintendent, Paul Royce, were revealed, and it kind of makes sense, and it goes with the idea that she probably spent the night somewhere else, and with the idea that the parents mentioned in the interview that there was a love triangle that probably caused her disappearance. Now, the love triangle was Rebecca, of course, Rebecca's girlfriend, which was the American young girl, and a male crew member that was from Central America. And here's the deal. Before I tell you what the superintendent think that happened that night, and and all the evidence that he could compile, apparently Rebecca was having a relationship with this American young girl. And remember that they left on the 21st, and Rebecca immediately after, she disappeared. So I'm assuming that this relationship started before they left for that trip, right? Apparently in this trip, it came the boyfriend of Rebecca was not confirmed, so they did not include any names. So again, the American girl, she had that boyfriend who was a male crew member from Central America. But that same American girl was dating, quote unquote, dating Rebecca. Apparently, this American girl was trying to convince Rebecca to have an open relationship and to be included in this triangle. According to another crew member, Rebecca didn't want that. She just wanted to be with this American girl and not the guy. She was very unhappy and she felt unsafe and was afraid of sexual assault because she didn't, according to this other account of this other witness, she didn't want to have a relationship with this guy. But apparently he was pushed into this relationship. Now that night we have, according to this superintendent notes, it is confirmed that the three of them were together that night. And they were in a public place where the American girl left to get some beer. Rebecca stayed behind chatting with the American's boyfriend, the guy, the crew member. And then the three of them were seen leaving together to the male crew member room. According to the superintendent account, the three of them had sex. The American girl, and it's really specific what he wrote. The American girl left to get more beer, and when she came back, she found Rebecca having sex with the guy boyfriend. After that, earlier in the morning, Rebecca left, and according to this account, she told her girlfriend that she needed to leave. The girlfriend said, "No, please stay." But Rebecca put whatever she had, she could find clothes by, and she wore all the flip-flops and left. Now all this information is very conflicting because it can go two different ways, in my opinion. One, Rebecca didn't want this relationship but agreed to do it because she loved or cared for this girlfriend of hers. And she gave it a chance and didn't like it, and she couldn't live with it. Maybe she wasn't careful, and or maybe she did jump after this. Or maybe, like her parents think, she was sexually assaulted by this guy. Kind of set it up by her girlfriend leaving her with this guy. And she just couldn't take it. And maybe she was afraid of being sexually assaulted. Maybe she was drunk. Maybe, something happened and she decided to join them. And then decided she didn't want to. But really, what do we know? They believe that when she was talking to this crew member was actually her girlfriend that was trying to convince her to go back to the room. So, what happened to Rebecca? When they questioned this male crew member, he almost laughed about it and he made a joke out of that questions, and like he didn't have to push anybody to be with him or something like that. The police had to warn him that he needed to chill, that he was being very disrespectful, making a joke out of somebody who's not here to defend herself. So, really, did he do it? Did they do it as a couple? Because the guy forced himself into Rebecca. Did Rebecca had a very heavy conscience and maybe she felt like she was taken advantage of and she couldn't take it. You know, if you are into girls and you are pushed into being with a guy, or you're forced to be with a guy, yeah, that's the kind of thing that I don't know. You know, I really don't know if she could have put up with it. I don't know if she would have agreed. So of course these are theories. We cannot prove anything in this case. This is just different things that happened that night in the account, and you know, according to different witnesses and people that, but truth be told, maybe Disney does know. Maybe people know what really happened to Rebecca, but you know, do we think about it? You're the Disney owner, guy, people, whatever, and you are encouraging people to go to this amazing experience in the cruise ship, and you have kid entertainers like Rebecca, okay? And then you find out that she was into girls, okay? Which, by the way, I'm not judging, but I'm saying, and she was having a little threesome, according to this account, with this guy during the cruise, and maybe they weren't too drunk, maybe they weren't doing drugs, maybe she did jump, maybe they did push her. So whatever the scenario it could be, it doesn't look pretty, and people judge. People that spend thousands of dollars in a cruise, they want the perfect experience without realizing that it's not possible, because that experience is including people, and people make mistakes. People have feelings, people have sexual preferences, and even if you don't agree, well, that's just part of life. So it would look pretty bad for Disney if they would explore the possibility that something like this was going on with a child entertainer. Again, I am not judging, because you do your job and then you do whatever the heck you want with your life. As long as you're not hurting anybody, and as long as you're doing whatever makes you happy, you do you after you clock out, you know. But does it look pretty for Disney? Not really. So maybe they do know. Like that witness said, they have the tapes. But would they want to put themselves in a situation something, tell the parents and do something so the parents, if they agree that they don't have to talk about it, but at least the parents would know. Listen, this is what happened, but we don't want it to get public, or we don't want it to get out. This is what happened. I wish that'd be something that they could do, sign something legally. If that was the case, I wish that somebody would have the heart to explain to the parents what really happened, or to show the parents, if this in fact is in camera, that somebody would show the parents what really happened. What do you think happened? Do you think she was abused and she couldn't take it and she jumped? Do you think that maybe the couple had something to do with it and got rid of her? And Disney is covering the thing because they don't want to get involved in this kind of thing. I don't know, it sounds like a stretch to me. Now, if you ask me, what do you think happened? If in fact that night happened, like the superintendent described in his notes, and in fact Rebecca was pushed into being with this guy, or maybe was raped by this guy. Gee, I don't know. Any rape would be something unbearable. But being raped by, a guy when you are into girls, I've heard that's kind of one of the worst things that can happen. Maybe she was I don't know. The only likely scenario in my head is the idea that she was forced into being with this guy by the guy. That maybe, they were too drunk, and maybe she didn't resist as much as she would have done if she wasn't drunk. And I'm not shaming anybody for drinking, or nobody deserves this. But I'm saying that if that was the case, maybe it was easier for the guy to convince or to do something to her that maybe she didn't want. And when she realized what happened, maybe she couldn't take it. And maybe she did in fact went overboard. Maybe she jumped. I don't know. She didn't show any kind of suicidal thoughts before, because she was planning to go back home. She was planning all these things with her family. But what happened in somebody's mind when something this happened, like this happens to you? I don't know. I don't know. Her mental strength to deal with the idea that maybe something bad happened to her that night. That maybe she didn't see a way out. It's such a sad case, either scenario. Somebody got rid of her. I don't know. It's bad publicity for the company, but would they really cover it to make their cruise look like a safe place to go and maybe not lose thousands of customers? Maybe. But I don't know. I don't know the impact of something like that happening to her could have done. Regardless, this is one of those cases that the end will always be the same. Rebecca's not here with us anymore. Either because she decided or because somebody else decided. stories. And I don't think that this is such a, my goodness, I wonder what could have happened kind of situation either, like other cruise ship disappearances. This one, it doesn't kind of have a backstory, and it does make sense, and it does point to a direction that again leaves us and leaves a family without a Rebecca, a sister, a daughter, a friend, a young girl, full of life, happy, who happened to be in the wrong, maybe kind of relationship, or maybe the girlfriend didn't want to be exclusive, or maybe the girlfriend had other likes and ate way down on Rebecca. It's hard to judge somebody who's not with us anymore and judge their mental state at the time. But this doesn't look like an accident. It looked like something really bad happened to somebody who didn't expect it, who wasn't depressed for a long time, who wasn't thinking about doing this. But that's what I believe. That's what makes sense in my head, but I don't know what really happened. Let me know what you think happened to Rebecca. Do you have a theory? Do you have something that maybe you read or heard somewhere that you can add to this video? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much, guys, for being there. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you